Good evening, everyone.
Evening, Chris.
Okay. Kevin, me, Kurt, Janet. Let's see, waiting for a couple more to join.
Chris, this is Skip. I'm on the phone.
Oh, Skip, you're on?
Yes.
Okay. Alfred, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. And what about Joe? I don't see Joe yet.
Yeah, I'm on.
Oh, are you? Okay. You undercover?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started then. Starting with announcements, open session, and any public comments. Do we have any? Okay, we'll move on to administrative, starting with roll call. So we have myself, we have Joe, Skip, Kevin, Kurt, and Alfred, and Janet. What about Will? Is he on?
Yes.
I'm here, Chris.
Oh, okay. And Rebecca Ruffley?
She's not, but I'll text her and see if she can join.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so next item is the approval of the minutes of meeting from the November 8th meeting. So you would take a few minutes to either reread them, refresh your memory, and then we can entertain a motion to accept.
She'll be here in a couple minutes.
Okay.
I would move that we accept the minutes of November 8th unless somebody has a correction or addition.
Okay, so moved. You hear a second?
I'll second it.
Kevin, thank you. Go ahead and vote. Alfred,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
Skip,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and Chris. Aye. Okay, so they pass 6-0. Next item is the status of our 2021 dredging, any dredging concerns. I'll give a brief summary, but I see that Ted Augustine and Stephen Driscoll are on, so they can also provide an update. To date, I believe there's been 77 scows that have been loaded. I think that probably approximates 96,000 cubic yards, but that's just using an average quantity per scow. Right now, they're working along the piling line in the North Access Channel. Ted, would you want to speculate how many more dredging days you have?
We probably have more along the piling line, another 8 loads to go, and we are redredging down the cut 2, which is 3 cut lanes, 1, 2, and 3. So 2 being in the middle, redoing that because the material from the creek is slowly creeping in. We're digging it a lot deeper to get the heavy stuff out, and trying to provide the town and GEI with a passable survey. And I guess we're working off of lead line surveys because the electronic means are not working. So this is the same thing that happened 20 years ago. So to try to keep the whole project moving, that's what we're doing. And GEI and Steel Associates have combined forces, keeping an eye on it, as you were, to make sure the numbers are acceptable to both parties.
Right. And just looking at it myself, I figured you probably have about 10 digging days, between the piling line and any other shoals that get done in the meantime, any shoaling. So
Right.
If that's the case, and I figure the next day or so, because of the wind, won't get anything. So I'm saying you probably finish the dredging around December 18th.
That would be just grand.
So I'm overly optimistic, I can tell by your comment.
Right. Yes. And my dear wife is listening as well. So she wants her husband home for Christmas.
Okay. Any other discussion about dredging? Move on to an update on the permit and the lobbyist activity from Joe, and this is as pertains to Area 2, next year's dredging.
Yes. Congress is now back in session. Our lobbyist has been very active, working with the Army Corps and members of our congressional delegation. The Assistant Secretary of the Army appointment has been made, and that's a key person because he oversees the Army Corps of Engineers. Congressman Keating has a meeting scheduled with him just to discuss the permitting process for Area 2, the mooring field. Senator Markey has recently opened a discussion with the Corps, and the Corps expressed to him that they felt positive about reaching a resolution, that they needed some time to touch base with the New England Division people here. And I think it's a positive sign. They certainly haven't closed the door and are very much open to discussing a resolution. So I think the efforts of our congressional delegation and our lobbyists have been positive.
Okay, sounds good. Any questions for Joe? Okay, the next item is somewhat new. We touched on it last meeting, and it's part of the long-term maintenance dredging sediment mitigation. So I had issued a little worksheet here, if you have that in front of you. I think one of the things be good to accomplish tonight is take a quick look at it. If there's any information that people can update tonight, I'll do so. And also, if there's any specific actions on this list that people would like to volunteer for. Kurt, you don't have to volunteer. I already got you in there.
The one thing I would want to mention, Chris, is, because I'm looking at the list, but the first couple items there, Mayo Creek. Jay Norton's going to be obviously very intimately involved in that. He's responsible ultimately for overseeing the budget relative to, Commercial Street reconstruction, which is part of that project. So
I'm
he's-
sorry, you said Jay Norton for Mayo Creek?
Yeah.
And what about Duck Creek?
Duck Creek is aspirational because I think what you're referring to there is the potential removal of the old railroad bed, which would increase
Right.
flushing and allow probably more northward migration of sediments, helping to keep them potentially from bottling up at the lower end of Duck Creek. I'm not sure, that's private property. I'm not sure, to what extent the private property owners would be willing to, turn that land over.
Right.
So House
Maybe
Pond,
sounds like we make that one a somewhat lower priority. Hawes Pond, and I'm viewing Hawes Pond through the lens of the state project. So who for us would be that point person?
House Pond. I was
Yeah.
there today and it was full, so I volunteer for it. It had water in it way up over the normal banks.
wow. I think, that one's really being coordinated through our consultant, Scott Horsley, the Clean Water Committee, and
Yeah.
Hillary, along with the Conservation Commission. So,
Yeah.
that's the town-facing interface with respect to DOT.
Okay, so you got Scott and Hillary and the Conservation Commission, and who was the other agency?
Department of Transportation, Mass Highway, they're
Oh,
ultimately
yeah.
the ones.
Yeah.
That's the,
Mass
it's their budget.
Okay, let's move on to the next category where if we're able to come up with a dewatering method, we would need to put some dewatering equipment on location somewhere. So I had just penciled in a few items. I think Alfred had actually told me years ago that it was done in the Indian Neck Beach parking lot. And then maybe the Hilda Trust. And again, Mayo Creek and/or Duck Creek and Herring River. But are there any other dewatering locations that we should put on this list now?
Well, we didn't dewater it, the Herring River. All we did was, to the best of my knowledge, was we dewatered at the ball field and at the Indian Neck and over to the back of the mooring basin.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't put just, I wasn't trying to put where we had done it in the past. I was trying to put where we've done it in the past and/or any future. So the ball field, yeah, I didn't realize that. So that could be a new entry for a review.
That's how we got a ball field.
Oh,
I'm serious. That was a hole. We filled the ball field and we filled Costa's Motel.
Oh, okay.
And if you look at the 1939 aerial of where the breakwater is, it's about a quarter or an eighth of the size that it is now. That's all filled property over there. The Conservation Committee 20 years ago, I did test holes over there because we were considering using it at that point.
All right. So are there any other locations that we could put on this list for review going forward? And if not, if you think of them, after the meeting, just send me an email and we'll work this list.
It's something that John Reel has talked a lot about, John Reel and John Portnoy. You know, I know they are very, very interested in, you know, trying to use those spoils for, you know, either Mayo Creek or for Herring River at some point. But how we would actually get engaged with the Herring River project for consideration is, you know, sort of beyond me.
Yeah, no, that's pretty far out, but as it goes forward, you know, in a perfect world, it would be a destination to pump to.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is that in order for that to happen, I think we've got to have somebody who's going to be a champion within the Herring River Project group.
Right.
So I don't, you know, we might want to reach out to John Reel or John Portnoy and see who that might be. Tim Smith has obviously been coordinating the project for the Park Service. But if it's going to be a realistic alternative, it needs some vetting.
Yeah, a little bit further down on this list, I had put John Reel's name down because I think I had heard him make reference to it that we really need to find a way to do it in the recent harbor management plan when he presented that. So I've got him listed below, and we can reach out to him.
So I would say with the Herring River project that they know about it, but boy, that looks like it's years in the making still, you know? I don't know when. But John Portnoy would be a good person too, because he's been more involved with the Herring River project than I think John Reel. Both of them would be good. And it might be the Herring River project is having a meeting the 16th, December 16th, and I will bring it up.
Okay.
See what the possibilities are in the timeline.
And then the category just above that I skipped over is we need to identify what equipment would be required for dewatering. So we'll need to work this in conjunction with possible locations for dewatering. So Alfred, do you have some insight into what we need for dewatering? I assume some type of containment and then and settling time.
I have no idea what the settling time would be.
Yeah.
I do know that when they dredged the last time in the 50s, there was very few rules. And I believe at one point we looked at using all of over by the breakwater, and the detriment to that is we gave some of it to Conservation Trust. So I don't know if we have the same amount of area for dewatering. But I don't think that some of I'm going to be negative for discussion. I don't see how you could dewater on the Hill to Trust property because, first of all, it's all white sand down there, and second of all, it's majority shellfish beds. You know, when we tried a poor job at dewatering when they dredged at the gas dock, they tried to do it in front of the shellfish building, and that ran for about an hour. And then the whole thing got shut down because it just was not enough upland room to create the sediment bowls or to trap the sediment, I believe.
Right. I was wondering if there was an area on the Hill to Trust that would lend itself to it. Certainly not right down at water's edge for the reasons you just noted. But it is a fairly large acreage, like 160 acres.
Yeah, but the majority of it's underwater at high tide. I mean, I guess the real question would be if you were going to put it on the beach grass or something up in that area, you'd have to show the positive multiplied by a number versus, affecting that. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying it's going to be a huge positive compared to what the small negatives might be.
Okay.
Alfred, when they did the boat ramp, they put it up on the pier. They had that big dam with the block pylons.
Yeah.
That was a small amount, but that took such a long time to drain out. Then they trucked it out when it dried. Oh.
But you got to realize it was also on asphalt, so it couldn't drain, it only drained on the side with the sun.
Right, but they use the containment of those Jersey barriers with a liner in it.
No, that's true. But over on the Indian Neck at the breakwater, when we dug the test holes,
Yeah,
we could find the actual lines where the water had come out of the pipe with the sediment, because you could see the layers of sand and shells all piled up. And I don't see how you could get enough area
yeah,
at the marina, because the only drainage is going to be basically from sun evaporation. Because if you put a containment area around it, being concrete, you get asphalt on the bottom.
it's only
Not a lot
going
of-
one way. Yep.
Yeah.
No, I
I'm
get
not saying
that.
that. You know, I've seen pictures where they've done it in that area, and they keep making ponds, so the water goes out of one pond into the next pond into the next pond, so that the sediment, you know, doesn't flow with it. But I don't know how much elevation you're going to get that way, and how much you can actually put in an area.
Yep.
There's also the odor issue.
The examples that I've seen lately are down in Rhode Island where they're doing thin layer deposition, but that's almost exclusively on salt marsh. You know, we've got a fairly large acreage and you can pump onto a salt marsh to do that type of deposition. And the salt marsh naturally is going to, it's going to allow it to dewater in terms of where the salt marsh is normally draining anyway. But, you know.
How do they get it up there, Kurt? By back?
No, well, what I've seen is pumping for the most part. So they'll hook up, you know, fairly long, amounts of piping. I have seen it barged, Kevin, as well, down in Maryland, the Chesapeake in Virginia. I have seen barges that they will, very, very large ones, and then they will also pump out of the barge. So they're basically, I don't know how much dewatering is actually going on the barge. I think they're just filling up the barge and then pumping it out to do deposition on nearby salt marshes or bank. But we don't have, you know, as Alfred said, I mean, that the area in the inner harbor is extremely limited.
Yep.
Well, it is and it isn't. You got to realize when they did the last time, at the back of the mooring basin, that was all water up to the bank. I mean, we filled probably 200 or 300 feet, and now those people have claimed that land, and so is the Conservation Trust. So where there was a salt marsh, maybe in theory, we've brought it up, and we don't get the second bite at the apple.
Okay, one other group we could reach out to having to do with the equipment. And we had this discussion in the town hall basement when Barnstable County came up, talked to us about their dredge. And it just philosophically, whether their equipment would be able to handle, our black mayonnaise. And so at the time, they talked about doing a test on it, but then they came to the conclusion that we could just probably look at the pump curve and figure out. So I'll reach out to Barnstable County and see what they know about equipment, either because they have it or because they're familiar enough with what's required. So I'll add that to this list.
Oh, I believe it's pumpable. The fact that it's light and fluffy, you don't have to put as much water to it, so it's going to move.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the bigger issue is the destination and the dewatering.
I think the biggest issue is the dewatering. Because if you have clean sand, the silt level is going to be down. I mean, we're going to be pumping 50% silt or amount like that. And, you know, as far as pushing it a long ways, it becomes more costly, but it's doable. You just put a booster pump or two on it.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's a little more costly, but much less so than hauling it out to the disposal site.
Chris,
Yes.
with Barnstable County, Jack Units was the, whatever they call them.
He retired.
And he's retired. And I don't know the new woman much at all. And I know I haven't heard dredging with the county mentioned for at least a year. But you should call them and also talk to Ron Bergstrom. He's one of the delegates he's on the board of directors, and he's from Chatham. He knows all about dredging. He and I have talked about it, and he might give you some good ideas with what the county can do.
Okay, got it. And any more discussion on this list? Like I said, it's clearly a work in progress and will continue to be so for years.
Chris, if you'd like to talk with the county dredge, I'll set up that meeting for you and I to go and talk with them. That's not a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great.
Well, I think that's a good idea. The real question I have is the Board of Selectmen going to support this if we decide to put it where we dumped the dredge spoil before, over on the breakwater parking lot? I don't know. I don't want you to answer that, Janet. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Please don't take it that way.
Yeah, I
I
have no idea what the Board of Selectmen would do.
Well, personally, I think we should fill out the forms with the Conservation Committee, because we've been going around in circles and find out what their requirements are, because we know that the county can come pump the stuff there. So, I mean, for us to ask the county, which is a great, I don't have a problem with that discussion, but I know where it's going to end up. They're going to ask us where we're going to put the dredge spoil. And without that answer, it's difficult for them to even come up with a plan.
I think it's a good idea to talk to the Conservation Commission and that, because, if this is more or less clean fill, it would be a good thing for Wellfleet. And I know, is it this week that there's the meeting on low-lying areas, low-lying roads? And they're going to have to start raising the roads when the state repaves them. And I know that Blackfish Creek is one area that they have to raise. Pamet River is another road area they have to raise, and certainly along High Toss. So I think with this next phase, we're almost back to the beginning of the next phase, where we have to talk to the county, the state, but conservation, I mean, they may want it. They may want the fill. I don't know.
I guess I wasn't envisioning much of it in the beginning to be clean fill, but
I don't know. Do we know?
Well, it's not contaminated.
Yeah.
That we do know. How useful it is for fill, it's not very dense. I mean,
the structural capability is probably low.
It's probably fairly good as nutrient because it's high in nitrogen. So,
Right.
for thin layer deposition on salt marsh, it's ideal.
What about down by Lieutenant's Island and Old Wharf Road, Logie Bay, and further south?
I think that's going to, if it's environmentally fine, I'd say yes, but I think it's going to become cost prohibitive when you start pushing it that far.
Okay.
I mean, there might be grant money for, as Kurt's saying, the use of it for something. If we could get through an environmental grant of some sort.
I think our most promising outlet is the Herring River. If somebody would, can champion that, because it's within our, more or less within our control and relatively close.
All right. I mean, it's a good idea, but you're involving the seashore and the national park system. But yeah, I mean, I will talk to Carol Ridley tomorrow, or email her and see when's a good time to talk to her and hook her up with everybody.
Well, there's an awful lot of fill going in there, isn't there, through the project and the roads and stuff?
Yeah, but I don't know. Yes. Yeah. That's why I said it'd be good for a lot of places. I don't know exactly what they're using to raise the roads. I don't know. That's what I'll find out.
It may not be good enough for the road, but it certainly is good enough for bank material.
Yeah,
Right.
I think so, but I don't really know.
What would your opinion on that be, Kurt?
What's that, Alfred?
I said it may not be good enough to go right under the road, but it certainly could work as bank material.
Yeah, and I think they've got, I mean, in the past, John Portnoy's talked a lot about that. I think in order for it to happen, it just needs a champion. Somebody has to think it's a great idea from within the project to start to try to coordinate getting, there's going to be permits and there's coordination with the actual, as an integral component of the project. It's the right material for so many uses within the project. It's very consistent with what's in the Herring River Basin anyway. So
I can give John Portnoy a call and, just let him know that we're very interested. And like I said, I know he's interested just because of the comments he made when he presented the harbor management plan. So I can reach out to him.
And find out, I'm thinking that there should be a meeting with Carol Ridley, who is running the Herring River project. And, Zoom call or whatever. I can talk to her first, but then set something like that up. And then eventually talk with Superintendent Carlstrom too at the seashore.
Okay.
Does that sound like the right process?
yeah, absolutely, Janet. That sounds like a great plan.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else for this worksheet?
Chris, what's the timeline on knowing this?
I'm sorry, repeat the question. What's the timeline for which?
Like what, does this need to be decided where and when by the end of the year, or like what's the decision timeline? I mean, I'll call her tomorrow.
Well, I think by 10 o'clock tonight would be okay.
Okay, I think she's up. She's one of those people
No,
that's probably awake.
No, this is out in time, but what I envision is we would identify a couple of paths, and some of them may never get to fruition, and some of them will be shorter and faster, but maybe would consume less material. And then another path, and specifically the Herring River, it's probably a longer path, but it would consume a lot of the material as we go forward on, this is over the next few years, so that as things start to silt up again, we have a plan to get rid of it, and we would do it on a regular recurring basis, maybe every couple years rather than wait the full 20.
Okay, I just want to have a general idea. Good, thank you.
Okay.
Janet, one other thing to think about though, it could take 2 years just to get the permits.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm wondering is if you needed the permits by, the end of December. So, okay, yeah. Ongoing. I think she even knows about this. I mean, I don't think this is a surprise to anyone, but I will definitely check.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It's probably not a surprise. It's just, okay, how do we work our way through the details and the coordination, and as Alfred said, the permits.
And I think, Janet, it's also, in terms of the timing aspect, as Chris said, it's really trying to tee up some locations that are part of the longer term, dredge maintenance plan. So the beauty of that is if there's siltation that occurs, if the Herring River project wants to step up to the plate in, let's say, 6 years, you could coordinate that, both from a permitting standpoint and then from an accumulation standpoint. We'll have a fairly good idea over the next several years how much siltation is occurring, how much material would be available, and they can then plan on how they can use it.
So when are we going to find out the quality of this stuff? So I'm also thinking, there's a, like Lieutenant's Island has some roads accessing on the backside that's part Audubon acreage and a road. And that road, I mean, you guys saw the high tide today, right? Did any of you go, did you see the bridge to Lieutenant Island today? There's a picture of it up.
Oh, no, I can imagine that because it
the
was a
bridge was-
12.8 tide.
Bridge was totally covered.
Wow.
And I would think Lieutenant Island would really be wanting some fill soon, just to get to somebody's house, just to get across, I don't know. I mean, the bridge was covered. So all those roads, can it be used for roads? Do we know?
No, most likely not.
Why not? Mix it with
It's
a little,
It's not really
sand.
sand. It's
So we could-
really,
Night.
you'd want solid material for roads. This really
This is
isn't the
kind
right
of
stuff.
slippery. But could somebody, I don't know, like use it like a road excavating, mix it with sand and dirt and it would cut it, I don't know. This is why I'm gonna have you guys talk to everybody. I'm just gonna set up the meeting. But it is gonna be, I know it's kind of mucky and all that, but they need fill. Think about it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lowland.
All right, move on to the next item on the agenda, number 6, which is, we talked about the last time, the sand and the shoaling area at the breakwater. Kevin had raised this and we said we put on the agenda so that we don't lose track of it and we take some action on it. One of the things we said is we would reach out to, I guess, Hillary to see whether her permit could cover it or maybe could be amended to cover it, similar to the work we do at the L Pier, and then we truck it down to Keller's Corner. So that was going to be one of the actions. And then I think we also talked about at the end of this month, when we have the survey boat out to do the post-dredge survey, maybe we scoot over there and do a little survey so we know where it's building up and where the channel really is. Any other comments on this issue? Okay, so if we get a chance when we're doing the post-dredge survey, we'll try and get a little bit of survey data over there.
Chris, are they gonna say how wide the channel is from that point to the edge of the grant?
Well, the survey data would allow us to determine that. We'd be able to see where everything is. Oh, to the grant.
That's about where that green marker is on the west side of that channel.
Yeah, I assume that distance is discernible at low tide, huh?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll try and gather some survey data for depth and including the distance to the grant.
This is just my opinion. I think that's probably one of the major next steps in the dredge. In maintenance, 'cause that's filling in the front end quite a bit.
Yeah, well, the good news on it is it's clean fill.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The bad news is you got grants all along that jetty, all along that breakwater in the inside. Ooh, quiet.
And
Okay.
Yeah, but
We're
the
thinking.
sand's got to go the other way, Kevin.
Yeah.
It's got to go. I guess my question is, and I asked this before, but I haven't had time to look. Maybe the town can. Is to get the plans for the breakwater, Because in that, they're going to show the topo for setting the rocks. Because the breakwater, low tide, was never dry.
Hmm.
So if we actually found the construction plans, so that if we ask the state if we can do a cleanup thing there, we can at least show that that's where it was naturally. And yes, that is all clean sand.
Are
You could
they,
put- you could pump
Alfred,
that
with those
somewhere.
plans, you think those plans might be either downtown in Town Hall?
You know, I have no idea. That was
Yeah.
done by the state back in the 50s.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, there's got to be a plan for that somewhere.
Yeah,
And the advantage of that would be, I imagine that the construction protocol for that breakwater shows how, where the sand elevations were the whole length of it originally to build it. Because they had to dig it down to put it below beach elevation at that point so that it wouldn't, wash out.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the question I have is at that point is if it is clean sand, and if we had the place on behind the breakwater, I can't see any detriment in pumping that up into the parking lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Alfred-
would be a huge start to show that we can do something right.
So that would actually be a good thing, because with water level rising too, we could always raise the parking lot. Do you have any idea of the general year that would have been built, or the plan? I mean, I can see myself going into Town Hall and everyone who's working there now just looks at me like, what breakwater? Do you have any
I'm
idea
gonna-
when it was built?
I would say between 54 and probably 60.
It was covered today with the ocean.
Yeah, for some reason, 57 and 58 sticks in my mind.
I was going to ask my mother because I wasn't quite here for that.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to show off.
Isn't the source of that sand though, Indian Neck? Anyway?
Oh, absolutely, Curtis. Whether or not, the problem is, I don't think we could, if we didn't have the shellfish grant in front of that, I would say just pump it back on the beach, like they do in Truro. But I don't know if we would have that option. We might be able to. I mean, that's why we have to sit down with the Conservation Committee and the rest of the things and just keep applying and come up with a place where we can start doing this. Because we talk about it forever and we don't do anything.
I know, and it's one of those things where it seems like it's, if we started recycling the sand, it would save people a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well,
What
we've
about, go
We've
ahead.
started
Sorry.
that down at the pier. I mean, the sand that's dug out there goes back to Powers Landing,
Right.
the yacht club, and further up. I mean, I'm not
Right.
saying it's a great job, but we have started.
Yeah, no, and it's a baby step in the right direction. That's for sure.
And it also shows just the state you're taking measures to maintain it.
And
the
that it's
other thing is-
it's sustainable too.
But when you move the sand from the pier back up the beach, it actually takes longer to come off the beach than if you put fresh sand there. For some reason, the stuff that comes out of next to the pier will actually stay longer in a storm than the dirt that we take off out of the sand pit or a cellar hole.
Yeah, makes sense in some way. What about asking Nancy Chavetta about, like where there's wild oyster gathering or some unused areas for the oyster beds? What do you think of that? Is there anything that you know of?
Regarding what?
Regarding putting this soil, this fill there? Is there any place, I know that there's a lot of oyster farms. Is there any place that there isn't? Like we mentioned Hilta, but is there any seasonal or on the sides of Hilta? But what about just Indian Neck?
Yep.
Well, I think it depends on what the dredge can do for keeping it up high.
Yeah, yeah. How do we
'Cause, like-
how do we do that?
I think we talked to the dredge, because I could picture them just pumping it up on the beach and you're pushing it out with a bulldozer,
Yeah,
as long as you stay out of the mud.
But you do have quite a few grants still in there.
Yeah, but if you stayed by Burton Baker Beach, on the other side of that first groin or second groin.
I'm talking
Unfortunately-
about, I'm talking about along that main jetty.
No, I'm saying pumping the jetty, because you're going to pump it. But when you're pumping it, you're not going to affect the grants, Kevin, because basically there's going to be very little turbidity because you're sucking everything up.
But you're going down with grants that are on the surface now, so you're taking all the sand, and if you're talking about going down, what, 8 feet?
Yeah, but you're only taking it out of the front of it, and then it's going to gradually slope off, just like it did when it blew over the top.
So you're not gonna take it out, you're just gonna put a trough in there.
No, I think you're going to go back a little ways in the breakwater, where the line probably was when they built it. Other than that, you're going to be in a new dredging situation. So if you could go back 50 feet from the face of that, let's say, or a number, and you took that whole sandbar out, it's going to drop slowly, because the fact that you clean the other side up, it's not going to come back over the top again.
So you're not gonna do the edge on the inside to the harbor?
You could, but you're not going to have any. The dredge is not going to. There'd be less sediment turbidity, in my opinion, than there is with a bucket.
Yeah.
But why would we want to do the inside of the jetty on the harbor side? I can see where we want to expand or regain, at the end of the jetty where this problem is. But I wouldn't think that we'd even want to or need to clean up what I'll call it the inside face of the jetty.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But you want to go along the channel all the way to the thing where the bars come in.
Yeah, I'll go along the channel. I agree.
And as long as you were using a pump dredge, the majority of the turbidity is going to be sucked up and pumped out to wherever it goes. So as long as the outfall pipe doesn't allow it to come back on the grant, you're ahead of the game.
And that's where all that sand came from in the first place.
Yeah, the
You
biggest
just-
problem with putting it back
Restoring
there
relief.
is the fact that we're not allowed to dredge and put the stuff on private property unless we sell it back to the people. As far as I'm concerned, we should sell it all back to them for $1.
I think we can get the plans from the Army Corps. We can at least ask them for the breakwater, and then we can get all our specifications right from that. But when Chris and I meet with the county dredge team, we can get their insight on this matter and what they would find in their professional opinions about the level of work to be done in that area and where we can go from there, and their capabilities as well.
Now, if we were to do this, and I'm way ahead of myself in this discussion, would the timetable be changed for the dredging time? I mean, could we dredge in January and February because we're not going to the dump site, so that the shellfish would be more dormant?
I
Yeah, that would
think
be-
the answer is yes. But, that's something we'll have to confirm. But I believe the answer is yes, because the reason we can't dredge past 31st, at least for the next few months, is the disposal site. So,
But if we were dredging in January and February or March, the
yeah,
majority of the shellfish is going to be dormant. You're not going to affect them very much of it.
yeah.
Well, most of it on the grants is going to be pulled out anyway.
No, I don't disagree, Kurt, but what's left, the oysters aren't pumping then.
Right.
They
but
slow
I
right
mean,
down.
Yeah, but like you said, I think you'd want it to be depositing high up on the beach.
Well, when they did it in P-Town, they just pumped it up in front of Land's End and made a mound, and very little water came back and went around the sides of it. As the mound got big, they pushed it off with a bulldozer.
Pushed it where? Up? Away from the
Up.
water's edge?
No, they pushed it towards the thing so that the silt stayed above it. They made like a little sandbar.
Uh-huh, okay.
But the problem is, until we do a project, everybody's so afraid of this.
Yeah.
We need to do it with nice, clean sand, small project, get in, get out, and show the people we can do it.
Eastham used to do this routinely on their side of Rock Harbor.
All right, we got a few homework assignments.
Yeah, I'm gonna be meeting with Hillary tomorrow anyway, and I'll just make sure I texted her just to let her know that it was something we discussed.
Okay,
To
good,
talk about it tomorrow with her.
good. All right, move on, schedule the next meeting. Staying with Monday, could do January 3rd, although maybe January 10th would be more appropriate. Ted, you'll come back for that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. All right, so I propose the 10th. Is that good with everyone?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And usual time, 7 p.m. Okay, we could entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Who's that, Kurt?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And a second?
Everybody wants to stay on the call.
I guess that's
I'll
the
second.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Kevin. All right, move to the vote. Alfred,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
Kevin,
All right.
Skip,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and Chris, aye. All right, it's a squeaker, 6-0, 6-0. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Chris.
Thank you,
Great
guys.
job.
See ya.